Hello, good morning students. Welcome in today's class through online teaching. In today's class, we are going to start a beautiful poem. Its title is My Last Duchess. In today's class, we will start a poem, My Last Duchess. This poem is a beautiful example of dramatic monologue, and it is written by Robert Browning, who is a famous Victorian poet. My Last Duchess has been included in BA Part 3rd syllabus, Paper 1st, Poetry and Drama. Robert Browning was an English poet and playwright whose mastery of the dramatic monologue made him one of the foremost Victorian poets. And we know that dramatic monologue was invented by Robert Browning. He is famous for his dramatic monologues. His poems are known for their irony, dark humor, social commentary, historical settings, and challenging vocabulary and syntax. Robert Browning was born in 1812 in United Kingdom and he died in 1889 in Italy. Robert Browning was born in 1812 in United Kingdom while he was died in 1889 in Italy. He was married to Elizabeth Barrett. Robert Browning was married to Elizabeth Barrett, who herself was a poetess. So students, what is the name of Robert Browning's wife? Answer will be Elizabeth Barrett was Robert Browning's wife and she was herself a poetess, a famous poetess. The Ring and the Book, My Last Duchess, Man and Woman, Last Ride Together, Porphyria's Lover and Meeting at Night are his important works. The Ring and the Book, My Last Duchess, Man and Woman, Last Ride Together, Porphyria's Lover and Meeting at Night are his important works. The poem My Last Duchess is a famous dramatic monologue and it is written by Robert Browning. So students, what is dramatic monologue? What is dramatic monologue? Dramatic monologue is a speech of a character to a second person. Dramatic monologue is a speech of a character to a second person that shows thoughts, feelings, passions of regarding character. Dramatic monologue is a speech of a character to a second person that shows thoughts, feelings, passions of regarding character. So we can know about speaker's character and personality through it. Now we will know important functions of monologue. In dramatic monologue, one person delivers speech on aspect of his life. A dramatic monologue consists one speaker and one listener. So one function of dramatic monologue is that it has a speaker who delivers speech on aspects of his life. Second function of dramatic monologue is that in dramatic monologue it is not necessary to present an audience. In dramatic monologue, audience may or may not be present. My Last Duchess is a poem of 56 lines in 28 rhyming couplet. This poem has 56 lines and 28 rhyming couplet, and this is written in iambic pentameter. My Last Duchess was published in 1842 in his collection Dramatic Lyric. When was the poem published? This poem was published in 1842 in the collection entitled Dramatic Lyric. The subtitle of this poem was In Italy. It is important fact related to this poem that the subtitle of this poem was In Italy. This poem is based on historical event. My Last Duchess is based on historical event and it is about Alfonso II. This poem is about Alfonso II who was the Duke of Ferrara. Ferrara is a city in Italy who lived in the 16th century. Alfonso II was the Duke. Duke means a type of king. A type of king. So Alfonso II was the Duke of Ferrara in Italy who lived in the 16th century. The Duke is the speaker of the poem. We know that the poem My Last Duchess is a dramatic monologue, and we also know that in a dramatic monologue has a speaker, one speaker and one listener. So the speaker of the poem is Duke of Ferrara. It is an imaginary character and the listener in the poem is a messenger of Count. The Duke of Ferrara is talking to a messenger of Count who has come here with a marriage proposal of Count's daughter to the Duke because Duke has recently been widowed. The wife of Duke has died recently, so messenger has come here with a proposal of marriage to the Duke. His last duchess is dead recently, so he wants to marry to the daughter of another powerful family. The Duke of Ferrara wants to marry another proposal family. The Duke of Ferrara is a widow, so he wants to marry to the daughter of another powerful family. He wants to connect with a powerful family. As he shows the visitor through in palace, he stops before a portrait of late Duchess. He stops before a portrait picture, and the picture, it was a picture of his last Duchess. She was a young and lovely girl. Then Duke begins reminiscing about his last Duchess. He start conversation related to his last Duchess as title suggests. At first he tells to the messenger about the portrait session, then about Duchess herself. He first tells to the messenger about the portrait session, then he tells about the Duchess herself. He tells about her disgraceful behavior. He claims that she flirted with everyone and did not appreciate his gift of 900 years old name. As his monologue continues, Fanny says, then all smiles stopped together. Having made this disclosure, we can guess that he killed his last duchess. Alfonso or the Duke, after her demise, the Duke returns to the business at hand. After his demise, uh, his last duchess demise, he started his business arranging. After death or murder of last duchess, Duke looked for another marriage with another young girl. He wants a beautiful girl as well as much dowry with her. He wants a beautiful girl as well as much dowry with her. As the Duke and Envy leave the painting behind, the Duke pointed out other notable artwork in his collection. Indeed, the poem provides a classical example of a dramatic monologue, and this is the story of the poem My Last Duchess. It is a famous dramatic monologue, and the speaker of the poem is Duke of Ferrara, and the listener is a messenger of Count who has come here with a proposal of marriage. The speaker is clarified, distinct from the poet. Audience is suggested but never appears in the poem, and the revelation of the Duke's character is the poem's primary aim. So students, now we will explain the poem My Last Duchess. Let's start. That's my last duchess, painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece a wonder. Now Fra Fandolf's hand work busily a day, and there she stands. Will not please you sit and look at her? I said Fra Fandolf by design, for never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance. But to myself they turn, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you, but I, and seemed as they would ask me, if they durst, how such a glance come there, so not the first. Are you to turn and ask thus? Sir, it was not her husband's presence only, called that spot of joy into the Duchess' cheek. Perhaps Fra Pandolf chanced to say, her mental lapse, over my lady's wrist to what, too much, or pent must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. She had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad. The scene, these are the opening line of the poem My Last Duchess, and the scene of the meeting between the Duke and the courts. Enovi is in a drawing room of the Duke's palace. The Duke, who is a widower, is talking about marriage proposal with her court's daughter. The Duke's previous wife is dead. The court's messenger visits the Duke with a fresh proposal of marriage. The Duke takes him to his art gallery where there is a portrait of the Duke's previous wife. The Duke removes the curtain and shows him the portrait of his last duchess. The speaker of the poem is the Duke, who is a widower, and the listener is messenger of a count. The Duke, pointing towards the painting of the Duchess, tells the court's messenger that the picture looks as if the Duchess were still living. He gives a compliment for the picture of Duchess, that the picture looks as if the pictures look as if the Duchess were still living. The Duke regards it a wonderful painting and thinks that it has been beautifully done by the painter Fra Pandolf. This painting was painted by Fra Pandolf, and Fra, it means friar. Friar. Friar is a type of priest. So the picture or the portrait of the Duchess was painted by Fra Pandolf. This painter worked throughout the day, and after his day's labor, the picture as painted on the wall was ready. The Duke cunningly reveals that he could not trust anybody to paint the picture except a monk or priest. Fra Pandolf was a monk painter or a priest. Moreover, the artist was permitted only a single day to complete the portrait. The Duke asked the Innove or the messenger to sit down and look at the painting of his wife. He requests to sit almost seems an order. His request to sit almost seems an order. It reveals the Duke's haughty nature. The Duke is addressing the messenger of a count whose daughter he is going to marry. He draws his attention to the portrait of his last duchess, now dead. He calls it a portrait done by Fra Pandolf and then qualifies his statement with the remark that he did so by design because he had noticed that visitors were intrigued by the expression on the Duchess's face and almost wanted to ask what caused it. The Duke means that often people observing the expression of passion on the Duchess's face were suspicious of an affair between her and the painter. He generally therefore attributed the painting to one Friar Pandolf since a clergyman's name would remove all suspicion. He was also particular that no one but he drew the curtain to display the portrait. Thus, the poem shows us the inside of a typical Renaissance character, and we can say that the Duke depicted in this poem was a proudy man, talking to the messenger of a count whose daughter he wishes to marry. The Duke shows him the portrait of his previous wife who is dead. He remarks on her nature. Instead of understanding her innocent nature, his last duchess or his previous wife was an innocent girl. He says that she was a shy, childish woman who was readily impressed and pleased. She treated all favours alike with a smile ready for everyone. The Duke tells the messenger that the sweet smiles on the lady's face were not for her husband's presence only. He suspected on her wife's character, so he says that the sweet smiles on the lady's face were not for her husband's only. The bright redness visible on the lady's cheek was very unique. The Duke explains why the portrait of the Duchess has a blush on her cheeks. Many people think that the blush appeared on her cheeks because her husband, the Duke, was present there when the portrait was being made. The Duke tells the messenger that the blush on her face was not because he was present there. There was some other reason of it. Perhaps some compliment by the artist occasioned that happy spot on her face. The artist might have complimented her on her dress. He might have said that her loose cloak covered her wrist too much. The Duke continued to say that it was not merely his presence in the studio that was responsible for the flush of joy. It was perhaps occasioned by some casual remark from the painter. He might have said that art could never reproduce the faint flush. The painter might have said that the blush was so lovely and yet so fleeting that it was impossible to capture it on canvas. The Duchess had a nature so easily pleased that even such a casual remark, one of formal courtesy, merely could make her blush with happiness. Because she was a simple and beautiful lady, but Duke did not like him because of her simplicity. The Duke said that innocence was the special grace and beauty of the Duchess' nature. She was innocent, pleasant, and kind-hearted woman, but the Duke was ill-natured, that he regarded these qualities in the Duchess as something below dignity. So the Duke said that remarks such as made by the painter were merely expression of courtesy. The Duke accepts that his last Duchess had such an innocent, happy nature that it was easily pleased.